Hi everyone, this is Attorney Lilian Chukura with Lily Legal, where we help our clients get status for themselves and their families using the U.S. immigration law system. So today I want to talk to you about how to become a U.S. citizen because that seems to be the question everyone has, right? Whenever I get a call, people want to become a citizen. They don't know the steps on how to become a citizen. So let's talk about it today. Okay. If you would like to schedule a private consultation with me, you can do that. All my contact information is in the description to this video. If you have questions as you're watching this, whether live or on a replay, go ahead and click in the comments and just pop your questions right in the comments for me. I do go back and respond to those. So go ahead and do that. But today we are going to be talking about how to become a US citizen. Let's jump right in. So, the first thing you need to know that in order to become a US citizen, if you are an immigrant to the United States, you have to start with a green card. Okay? That's the that's the first step. You have to start with permanent residency in order to then move to citizenship. Okay. There are situations where certain individuals may be able to bypass the green card step and become citizens, but it's only in specific situations. And I'll do a whole video on that. But today, if you are an immigrant, you have a green card, and you want to know how to actually become a US citizen, when you are in the right place. Okay. So the first step, you have to have a green card. You have to have your citizenship. Now, how long do you have to have your citizenship? How long do you have to have your permanent residency before you can apply for citizenship? So there's two rules. It's either 5 years or 3 years. Okay. It's 5 years if you got your green card through any source, right, other than a spouse that's a US citizen. Okay. So if your spouse is a US citizen, you are able to apply for citizenship within 3 years, 3 years of getting your green card. If you got your green card through, let's say, your parents, for example, you would have to wait 5 years. And depending on how old you are, right? Let's say you are 10 years old and you got your green card through your parents. Well, if you want to apply for citizenship, or in this case, naturalization, you have to be 18. So that's the other requirement. So you either have to have your green card for either 5 years or 3 years, or again, the 5 years and 3 years depends how long on how you got your green card. So either through spouse or through any other source. And then you also have to be 18. Okay. You must be 18 to apply for naturalization to the United States. So if you are 16 and you want to be a citizen, there may be other options available to you depending on your parents' um, citizenship and how long they've been a citizen and all of that. There may be another option for you, but in order to actually naturalize and apply for citizenship, take the test, do the oath, all of that, you have to be 18 and you have to meet certain other requirements. Okay. So you can become a citizen if you can show that you have maintained physical presence and continued permanent residence in the US. So, what does that mean? So, physical presence is that you're actually physically in the United States. Okay. So, this is a question I get all the time. When someone gets their green card, they want to know, oh, do I have to, you know, can I stay out of the country for a year, 2 years, and still maintain my permanent residency? Well, in certain situations, you can, but if you're going to be out of the US for more than a year, you need something called a re-entry permit. because there's an assumption that if you're out of the country for more than a year, that you no longer want to be a permanent resident of the United States. Okay, so if you're going to be out, make sure you get your re-entry permit before you leave. Make sure you apply for that, do your fingerprints, all of that before you leave the US. And if it's not granted, make sure you're coming back into the US before you hit that 1 year. I typically tell people not to stay out more than 6 months at a time, but it really depends on your particular situation. So, USCIS, Border Patrol. So, when you're coming in and you're going through the airport, they're looking at your how long you've been out of the US and deciding whether to admit you into the US or not. But if you can show that although you were out of the US, let's say for a year and a half, that you had good reason to be out of the US for a year and a half, and you maintained residency in the US. Okay. So, for example, I had a client that was out for 5 years and wanted to come back, and we were able to show that she was sick. We were able to pull medical records, all of that. The officers did go through all of that to make sure that she had a good reason for being out of the US for so long. So just make sure if you know that you want to be a US citizen at some point, you are maintaining the physical presence and the permanent residency. So that means permanent residency means US is your home, right? This is not a place you come for vacation. This is your home. Everywhere else, you go on vacation, you go on business trips, and you come back. The US is your home for all purposes. And you are maintaining a home here. Okay. You have a job, bank, you pay your taxes, you do all of that. That's ways to show that the US is your permanent resident. Okay. So typically for physical presence, they're looking for, if you're doing the 5 years, at least half of that is spent in the US, right? If you spend more than a year outside of the US, okay, let me make this clear. If you spend a year or more outside of the US, whenever you come back, you basically start over counting the 5 years. So anything you spend, let's say you spend 3 years continuously in the US and then you left and spent um, a year and like 2 days outside of the US, that cuts off your continuous physical presence, which means in order for you to then apply, you have to wait another to meet the requirements again. Okay. So this is so important, especially for people that love traveling and still have family outside of the US that they visit a lot. You really want to keep an eye out on how long you're staying out and if it's breaking your physical presence, making it impossible in some situations for you to apply for citizenship within 5 years of having your green card. Okay. If you were out for, let's say, more than 6 months at a time, there is a presumption that you were trying, US was not your permanent residence. So again, you have to prove that US is your permanent resident. So for example, you have a job, you pay your taxes, you file a tax return, you're not working anywhere else in the world. Um, and you're not maintaining a permanent residency anywhere else in the world. So again, you want to show US is your home. Everywhere else, you just go on vacation for a month or two and come back to your home. That's really the best way I can describe what it means to have the US be your permanent resident. Okay, this is your home. Everywhere else is either a vacation or a business trip. And if it's a vacation or business trip, then it shouldn't be lasting for 6 months or more, right? So think about it that way. If you really want to be a citizen of the United States, there are certain physical presence requirements that you have to meet to maintain it. Okay. The next is that you have to show that you have good moral character. What does this actually mean? So, in most situations, it means that one, if you have children, that do not live with you, that you're actually taking care of your children. So let's say you are male and you have a child with, let's say, your ex, and you're not paying child support, or you have back child support owed, or anything like that. That makes you not of good moral character because you're not taking care of your children. And if USCIS looks at the forms and sees that, oh, you have children um, that do not live with you, the officer may ask you to bring descendant documentation showing that you are taking care of their children. And just know most um, family law cases are public records. So, for example, in Massachusetts, you can go online. The court has a website. You can put in the person's name, the county they live in, or the court that covers where they live, and see if they have any child support cases against them, right? If they've been brought to court on child support, and if they are in arrears, if they are in violation of a court order that has to do with the children, you can see that. And USCIS can see that, I should say. So it doesn't matter if your neighbor can see it, it matters that USCIS can see it, and they can use that to deny your citizenship application. So you really want to make sure that if you are applying, you are taking care of your children. Okay. If you owe, let's say you owe back child support, that you are on a payment plan and following through on your payment plan um, to pay off those back child support before you apply for citizenship, because again, it's going to come up. The next thing is that goes into good moral character is, have you been paying your taxes? Do you owe the IRS? And if you do, are you on a payment plan with them? So if you owe the IRS and you're not making payments and you're just like, I owe them, oh well, that's fine. IRS don't like it. USCIS certainly does not like it. If you do have a payment plan, that's good, right? You can use the payment plan to show that even though you owe the IRS, you are making payments on that amount that you owe, and that you've like maintained your payment, right? You haven't fallen behind on your payments, so therefore you should it should not be held against you as far as good moral character is concerned. Now, people always ask, how would they know if I owe the IRS? Well, on your citizenship application form, on the naturalization form, N400, it does ask if you file taxes, if you owe taxes. So if you were honest on your application, it will reflect that you owe taxes, and you will then have to explain that. Okay. So, again, if you know that you're going to apply for citizenship, if you know that you owe the IRS, you may want to get on a payment plan or some sort of agreement with them as far as the payment of those before you file. Okay. That's the important thing. You want to basically get rid of any of those things that could make the officer look at your application twice. Okay. The next thing is the biggest, which is criminal history. So typically, USCIS, when you're applying for naturalization, they're looking 5 years out, right? Do you have any criminal convictions, arrests? Do you have any open cases that are still going on while you're applying for citizenship? My rule of thumb is, if you have an open case, right? Whatever, if you have an open criminal charge that's still going through the courts, there's not a final decision on it, even if it's the only criminal charge you've ever had in your life, you should not be applying for citizenship. You should not be applying for citizenship if you have an open case, because 9 times out of 10, the officer will not approve your case, regardless of what the charge is, right? They will not approve it because you have an open criminal charge. So you definitely want to wait until all your charges are closed out, and hopefully they are closed out in your favor, right? Because if they're closed out in your favor, then guess what? You may apply for citizenship. The officer will look at the fact that, oh, okay, this case was dismissed. There's no, there's no restrictions on you. It's not like you're on probation. Again, if you are on probation, you should wait till you're no longer on probation, right? Your case needs to be completely closed. Probation doesn't mean your case is completely closed, because if you violate your probation, you may go back to court or end up in jail. So the officer knows this, okay? They know this before you go in. So because they know this, they're going to want a final decision before they can approve your citizenship. And if you can't give them a final decision, they're going to deny it. Okay? So, and you don't want to waste the money. That's the main thing. You really don't want to waste the money on applying if you know you have an open charge or you have a case. If you have a criminal charge that you either pled guilty on, were found guilty on, was given probation, whatever, you should be talking to an immigration lawyer before you file, because you want to make sure that those charges are not going to end up not only costing you in that you wouldn't become a citizen, but also costing you in that US immigration may decide to put you in immigration court and try to take away your green card. That is the last thing, the absolute last thing you want, is for that to be the situation. So before you file, if you have any sort of criminal history, make sure to talk to an immigration lawyer to make sure that you can actually file, or that you should file. Okay. The next thing to keep in mind is, if you have had any misrepresentation in the past, okay, let's say, and I'll tell you the most common one that I see a lot in the community that I serve. So the main community that I serve are the African and Black immigrants, right? And in that community, one thing that happens is people apply for the diversity visa lottery. They get it, yay. But what we notice is that the people that help them fill out the forms, there are these places that will help you fill out the forms for the diversity visa lottery in these different countries. They will tell the person not to put their children, their spouse, on the application, because for some reason they believe that it will affect their ability to be selected or to be given the visa. I'm this has affected so many people that I'm just going to say it. That's a lie. Okay. The lottery is automatic, right? It's not someone in there picking out names. It's, did you meet the requirements of the application? Yes. You answered all the questions that were supposed to be answered, and you uploaded the picture. You did this, you did that, right? You did everything that is asked of you on the application. It goes into a pool of all the names, and people are randomly selected. It's not an individual selecting. The computer program is only making sure that anything that needs to be filled out is filled out, and then they select. So whether you include your kids or not doesn't affect whether you get selected. And then when you go for your visa interview, whether you include your kids or not does not affect whether you get the visa. And I know this for a fact, because when my dad got his diversity visa lottery, he included that he had children, he included that he was married, and he was still able to get the visa and come to the US. Just because you are not planning to travel with your children or your spouse at the same time does not mean you don't include them. You just let the officer know, oh, they're not traveling with me right now. I still included them, right? So even if you don't plan on traveling with them, please, 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 this is like my public service announcement for the day. Please include your children and your spouse when you're applying for the diversity visa lottery, because if you don't include them, it could come and bite you when you go to apply for citizenship. Because guess what happens? What typically happens is once people get their green card, they want to apply for citizenship, they go and put the names of their spouse and their children. Now the officer is confused because you've been telling the US government that you do not have children and that you are not married. Now all of a sudden you're married and you have children. Confused, right? US immigration is not confused, and they're going to look at your applications and see, oh, you lied to us. So it's either you lied to us when you filed for the lottery or you're lying to us now. And if you lied to us when you filed for the lottery, we're going to put you in immigration court and try to take away your green card. So these are the things to really keep in mind when it comes to good moral character: is the criminal charges, the misrepresentations on your previous visa applications, owing the IRS, owing child support. Okay, those are the four main things that you really need to keep an eye on when you're applying. And if any of those apply to you, or you think they may apply to you, go ahead, talk to an immigration lawyer, a US licensed immigration lawyer, so that you know, um, one, whether you should be filing for citizenship, and two, how it could affect you one way or the other if you do decide to file. Okay, so that is so important, and I just wanted to take the time to go through that. And again, something you need to keep in mind: you always have to update your address with USCIS, even as a green card holder. Yes, you have to update them that you've moved. It's something that people don't do, but it's in there. Now, if you received your green card between the time that you were 16, um, 18 to 26, right? Between 18 and 26, you're supposed to sign up for selective service. This is basically the draft. Um, Most people don't know that they're supposed to sign up for this. So I've had people that were here since they were like 16, and now they're in their 30s and they want to apply for citizenship, and they never knew that selective service was a thing. This is not fatal to your case. So if, let's say, you're still within the time frame to register for selective service, go ahead and do that so that it wouldn't be a problem. However, if you're no longer within that time frame and you didn't know about it, US immigration is not really going to penalize you too much for it. Okay, I've had people approved for citizenship that never signed up for selective service because, one, they never knew about it, right? There's no one telling you that you have to sign up for selective service. And two, they've passed the age where they can actually still sign up for selective service. So again, if you think selective service may be an issue in your situation, go ahead, talk to a lawyer, see if it actually is. Um, most of the time it's not, or it's an easy fix. So go ahead, talk to a lawyer, make sure it's not a problem for you. So just to go over everything you need again: one, you need to be a permanent resident for either 5 years or 3 years, depending on how you got your green card and if you are married to a US citizen. Two, you need to be at least 18 years old. Three, you need to show that you have physical presence and continuous permanent residence in the US. So that's at least, if you're doing the 5 years, that's at least 30 months physically in the US out of the 5 years. Okay. And also remember with that, if you are outside for a year or more, you basically start over in counting the 5 years. If you are out for 6 months but less than a year, there's a presumption that you don't want to be a permanent resident anymore. And you just have to show that you are still maintaining your residence in the US. Okay. The next thing is you have to show good moral character, right? You have to show good moral character. That means paying your child support, paying your taxes, not having any criminal history that would affect your case. If you have any open charges, including if you are on probation, probably not the best time to apply for citizenship. And finally, if you have any misrepresentation, like not including your children on your diversity visa lottery application, you should be talking to a lawyer to make sure you should still be filing. Okay. The fifth thing, you need to change your address with USCIS. Just keep updating them when you move so that it doesn't become an issue. And then finally, if you are a male between the ages of 18 and 26, make sure you are signed up for selective service. If you are now, let's say, over 31, you're no longer able to sign up for selective service and you didn't know you were supposed to sign up for selective service, that is fine. You can still become a citizen. But if you're still within the age where you can still sign up, you most definitely need to sign up unless you have some good reason not to. Okay. So that is all I have for you today. If you have any questions, go ahead, as always, put them in the comments. If you want to talk to me and see if you qualify for citizenship, please feel free to do so. My number is on the screen, as always, and all my contact information is in the description to this video. So thank you so much for your time. And remember, if you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you know someone who needs to hear this, please share this video with them. And if you are listening in a place where you can subscribe, go ahead and subscribe so that you do not miss any of my future uploads. And once again, I am Lilian Chukura. I am the owner of Lily Legal, where we do immigration law and we do it well. Bye for now.